Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone around the world. I am Paul Sisler, and I am the host of In the Moment. Hello, hello, hello. You'll notice at the beginning I threw up the suicide hotline. Suicide numbers are on the rise. If you're in that mindset, you're in a crisis, make sure that you dial 988 or call 1-800. The number was up there. I'll put it up there again. Um, 1-800-273 talk 8255. I myself deal with these thoughts on a daily basis, and it's serious. The numbers are up there. Back in 2000, the numbers every year were around 20,000 people, and last year in 2022 it hit 49,000 people committed suicide, and this year it looks like it's going to be over 50,000. So if you're in crisis, make sure that you call and ask for help. Um, it's something that weighs heavy on my heart. There's a lot of people, whether it's depression, PTSD, in my case, pain. I live with pain every day. It has an effect on you. So it's something that I take serious. With that, let's get on with the show today. Becoming Stoic. We have Benny, the Stoic Padawan, and we are going to continue on the 4 virtues with a focus on courage today. Hello, Benny. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well, Paul, and you? And yeah, first of all, good that you put out the number. I think it's really important for people to show that there is some support out there, and yeah, definitely, that's awesome that you're doing that. So great. But
Thank
yeah,
you.
how are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I got up and here I am. I'm here today. So that's the important thing.
Yeah.
And our main topic, courage, it plays along with that. Courage plays a big part in facing every day and overcoming the obstacles that one may face, whatever they may be. With me, I get dark thoughts every morning. Again, mine's due to pain, and I got a wonderful little pup that helps me through that. And I come on here. This helps with it. I go into spaces that helps. So I have a lot of people that I talk to and reach out to, and you know, a lot of people that contemplate this in their mind, they're not usually talking about it. They're not usually opening up with other people about it. We present as if we are strong. We present as if our day is going good. We present all this happy energy, and yet we're literally dying inside and don't want to be here. So um, to overcome that, you know, for you, if you're someone that isn't in that mindset and you have someone like me who's calling up saying, hey, man, I really need to talk, please take our call. Please take our call. Even if we just need to call and vent a little bit, sometimes we're just looking for a reason to stay around a little longer. And, I've had a lot of people that I've talked to and reached out to, and those people have given me the hope to keep going. And now that things are going better for me, I have more of a positive outlook on life and want to be here. But it still doesn't stop the thoughts from coming into my head, So, anyways.
Yeah, and I just real quick, I think, question for someone like me who doesn't really have that, experience that you have, and from your side, what advice could you give from people who if you call someone, right? What would you want to hear, or what would you want to talk to? What is it that I would be able to help you with? I think that's also something, if we're sharing this, it's important to know, right?
Well, it goes back to Zeno and all that. You have 2 ears and one mouth. Listen, don't say, just listen. There's not any advice that you can give me. I mean, my mind is already made up and I'm talking to you. That means that I need to vent, and I need your understanding. I need your compassion. I need your empathy. And I want you to be there to understand and to wish me well, and to try to throw positiveness out there. I need by the time I'm there, I need a reason to stay.
Mm-hmm.
I need a reason to stay. And just that act of kindness might be enough reason for me to stay.
Yeah, I think that that's good to know, right? Because maybe people trying to solve the situation, they try to do other things, and you might feel pressure. But I think that's what you said. To listen, to be there for someone. I think that might be that's good to know, at least from my point. And maybe other people watching this. I think that's valuable information, especially if then what 988 was it the number? If
Yes,
you if
yes.
yeah, if you don't really feel like calling that and reach out to friends or family or someone you trust, I think that that's good to know as well for them to know. Okay, got to be there, take this call, and just listen and be there. So
Yep,
yeah, good. And
yep,
as you said, it ties perfectly in with the topic, right? With courage, because it
yes.
takes courage to admit something like that, right?
Yes, yes. One, it takes courage to talk about it, and two,
Hmm.
it takes courage to get out of bed. I mean, that's the biggest step to try to beat the depression. To try to beat the anxiety, to try to beat all these things that are trying to put me down. I'm writing. Writing helps a lot. As those that know on the flow and on the journey within, I write poetry. Poetry helps me a lot. Other people journaling, other people it's going out and hitting a punching bag. Whatever it is that is useful for you, utilize it. Utilize it. It can help with your mental state.
Yeah, definitely. And just as you were saying, it reminded me of a Seneca quote. It said like even to live is an act of courage. I think if it's something like that, I'll see if it's. But that's pretty much what he said. Like just to live, that's an act of courage. Be alive. I think that is a great point that you pointed out, and as well that everybody has their own outlets, right? Their own ways. If we hear a lot about you have to journal, right? And I think for me that is something that I'm not a big fan of when people say you have to do this. Try you can try it. I think that might be a better way to formulate it to say, hey, try journaling, try meditation, try as you said, hitting a punching bag, try to go for a walk. I think everybody has a different outlet, a different way of dealing with these things. And as you write poetry, I try to write something that maybe looks like poetry in the mornings and the evenings, but those are my thoughts as well, and I put them out there, and it helps. It helps kind of
Yes.
to get it out there. And I think writing is a good tool. Writing is a good medium to do that because you can keep it private if you choose to. You can keep it for yourself, or you can put it out there. But there's other ways, right? And I think that that's important for people to find out their outlets.
Right, right. See, I never used to talk about it, and I was in a space. It was held by a lot of people on Twitter may know her, dear Kimberly, and she was holding a mental. I think it was like Mental Health Mondays or something like that, and I was in there, and somebody else was talking about the dark thoughts, and I was scared to talk. I was scared to come up to speaker and talk about it, but the thoughts that this individual was having, I had, and I just suddenly felt the need to reach out to that person, which helped me with mine, and that was the beginning of me actually talking about it, which made me feel better. It actually feels good to talk about it. And so he, in his need, sparked my courage to step up and start speaking about it. And then in speaking about it, I was able to confide in other friends, and start talking about it a little bit more. And again, there was a lot of compassion with, quite a few of my friends that started talking to me and would call me, hey, Paul, how you doing today? And all that. You want to go into a space, you want to do this, so on and so forth. And um, giving me advice. Torch the Poet's the one that said start putting it down on paper. This was after my wife passed away, and I was in a really dark place again. Not wanting to be here. Um, my wife was gone, and I felt like I had nothing. My life was over. What? I have no purpose of being here. And Torch said, put it on paper. Put it on paper. And that's why I went back into writing my poetry. So now I'm writing poetry again. And again, it feels good, and it helps. It
Mhm.
helps my mental state. So, but you also have to be willing to take those steps too.
Yeah, and I think, and I'm not just putting it to one, side, but I think for men, it is more difficult to start talking about these things, especially in the male culture, it is you feel at least, and it's strange, right? If you start talking about your fears, your worries, but before it feels like you might be ridiculed, right? It feels like people might make fun of you, and that's why a lot of people, a lot of friends, and me and self included, if you have troubles, if you have worries, you don't really go out and quickly talk about these things because that's the kind of feeling that you have. So it takes a lot of courage, and I can't talk from the woman's perspective how that is in circles of women, but at least from a male perspective, that is difficult. It's an extra barrier where you feel, hey, first of all, I can't be seen weak. People might ridicule me. People might put me, they might ostracize me from their friend group. But the interesting thing is that you get a lot of courage. Like I went, through a breakup, my marriage ending. Some good friends of mine had the same, and we were kind of like a support group, right? We were just talking to each other, and in difficult times, hey, can I call you? And just kind of giving each other advice. I made some kind of rules for myself, and just say, okay, what am I going to do to because you get into that dark zone real quick in your head, like, am I not good enough, and all those questions that come ahead, and the more you go and do destructive behavior, the worse it gets. So it is good to kind of reach out and to make that first step, and that takes that courage to say, hey, you know what, I need this to be better, I need it to get ahead. So what, yeah, from a male perspective, that's an extra hurdle, right? It doesn't feel like it's open to as welcoming for people to talk about their own problems, because it feels like, hey, you've got to man up, you just got to keep going, and that's it. But that's not it. You gotta share. You gotta share it.
Yes, definitely. And you mentioned you appear weak, and that's the persona about it. We are shamed, and we're made to feel lowly if we have those thoughts. And I think the sadness that comes in is that if I can make the thoughts stop, I would. You know, I don't bring it up upon myself. It's just simply there. And there are a lot of people out there that are now talking about it and putting up the numbers and the helplines and stuff. Reggie Townsend, who I just had on one of my shows, he did a veteran space and was talking about suicide in veterans, and he's also putting it up. I know in the writing community, one of the biggest advocates that just comes off the top of my mind is Dana. I'm trying to think of her last name. I think it's like Dana Brown. She's a huge person in the writing communities and all that, and an advocate also, and puts the hotline number up in the nest on Twitter Spaces and all that. So she's a strong ally, someone that you can call and talk to and all that. Yeah, it's good to have people to be able to call. There's another person, Adam Scottsdale. He's also somebody that you can reach out to. And I know I'm putting these people's names out there, but it's only because I reach out to them. I talk with them. Even if I'm not talking about the fact that I'm feeling depressed or whatever, sometimes I'll go into a space and I will just simply converse with them. And because of who they are and how they present and the sincerity and strength that they bring out of me, I see them as mentors, I guess would be the way to put it. And they help me, So I hope they don't get mad at me for saying their names, but it means a lot to me because they advocate for this kind of help also. They're good, great people, So, but it's a hard topic to talk about, and I want to make sure that people have an outlet and have the ability to talk about it more if they need to, because again, when we go to this place in our heads, sometimes it starts to spiral, and we need somebody to help us get out of that, get out of that mind thought, help us find our happy place, and sometimes that can be hard to do.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's really good to mention this and to show people, hey, this is out there, and if you, I don't know, it could be a good. I think it could be a good space for people we're not really familiar with it, to see the kind of the signs to say, do you need some help? Because I think that that's sometimes also a question, just, hey, how are you doing, right? To ask those questions if you feel that something is not right, or reach out to people. I think that that is also important to kind of show, right? To kind of ask the people around you, just get in touch with them on a regular basis.
Yes, yes. And believe it or not, stoicism is a huge help. So, like, you and Bryce have been really, really helpful for me and all that, because when you come on every week and you talk about stoicism, and we talk about you and I, who are now talking about the four virtues, this helps me in so many ways, because it brings me to a point of, one, reeling in my emotions and not letting them take control. Because if my emotions get out of control, then again I can go into a spiral. So it helps with that. And then to remember, how much um um it takes to focus on something and try to put something into your life that can distract you from other things. It helps with that concentration. It helps me to be able to focus better on things in my life. So, again, stoicism, huge. And then what Shadow Fox does with the spirituality, same thing. It helps bring that positive energy. It's about positiveness, love, kindness, all these things that all of us want to feel and embrace in our lives. And yet there's so much anger and frustration and, negativity out in the world, that kind of stuff brings you down fast. When you're fighting, you're fighting for your life in a whole nother way. You're fighting with yourself. And what, like Shadow Fox says, it's like, bring me a solution, because when you fight, the fight continues. The fight is endless. It never ends, and I want to stop fighting. And unfortunately, there's two outlets for that. One is to not be here any longer. My
Mm-hmm.
battle, my fight's done, or to find something that makes it to where I no longer have to fight, and that's the difficulty. And that's where the courage comes in, to keep on going, to keep on, trying to find a solution so you don't have to fight anymore, that doesn't involve going away permanently.
Yeah, and just for one question, because what I was thinking, or like if you found a purpose to keep fighting for, right? Because maybe that's something that's in you, but at least you say, hey, you know what, this is my fight, and it's gonna be with me. But at least I have this purpose to keep going, right? This sense of like, hey, I'm doing it for something bigger than me. Maybe to help people. And this is, I've had some, the wonderful thing is that my sisters, I'm staying with my parents for a while. My sisters here, we have great conversations, about philosophy and life. And you never know how or when you're going to help people. And this is, as you mentioned, the spaces that Bryce and I hold. It is quite remarkable how many people reach out at the end, or in the background, to say, hey, I really appreciate it and thank you very much. And it's not something that when I started taking over these spaces, or when I started joining these spaces, that you kind of think about. Or when I went joining Bryce's space on Saturday, it's not something like, hey, I first of all was doing it for myself, kind of as an outlet to kind of to galvanize these Stoic ideas. But at the end of the day, you when you hear people come up or they reach out and they say, "Oh, that really helped me out. That had a big impact." You say, "Oh, I didn't expect that. Is that something that I did?" And it drives you to keep going. And everybody has their struggles. I think everybody has the things that they're dealing with, and if you share it, I think that that's one of the beautiful things about those spaces and things, platforms like this, like you are giving to people like me and to the other, great hosts that you have throughout the week. It is wonderful for people to see something, and you never know what someone needs to hear at that moment. You never know if it's something that you need to say or just do or reach out. So I think that that is really a big thing to do. And as you said, it takes courage. And for me, the Stoic philosophy helps in that sense. And it shows you that we are a community. We're a society. We need to be there for each other. And if we know what makes us work best, if we try to improve ourselves, then we can take each of those lessons, each of those steps, and share them with people who aren't as far as we are. And we have people who we are learning from, and we can then give it on. It's a perpetual motion. And I
Yeah.
think that that kind of, for me at least, that shows the beauty that's out there. Instead of uh, looking at the darkness, if you look at the news, and if you look at all the politics, the media, everything's going on. But if you look at the people around you and like put it on a human level, you can see that there's a lot of beautiful things out there. On the nature, look at it at those levels, you can see life is precious because we only have one and we're right here, right now, and we should try to experience every moment of it. But yeah, that's why, for me, philosophy of life makes you look at life differently, because you start to ask questions, you start to examine it, you start to know yourself better, and the more you know yourself, the more you get to be confident about who you are and what you can deal with. So I think that's why it's great to have these conversations as well, about stoicism and just philosophy in general, and the other spaces that you host as well. Great.
Yes, yes. We have Bryce in the comments. It takes courage to ask for help. It shows vulnerability and a true commitment to betterment. My weakness is my key to future strength, Marcus Aurelius said. The obstacle is the way. Yes, yes. And
And yeah,
oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, it does take vulnerability, right? And that's another thing that men are, especially men, and maybe a lot of women as well, who are afraid to be vulnerable, who are afraid to, especially to come on spaces, to come on platforms where other people might hear you. I
Oh,
had the
I think
same.
we lost him. Oh,
We're still here. Can you still hear me? Hey, Paul, can you still hear me?
well, all right, we're back. Okay. Yeah, I had a stall on my internet there for a second.
Ah, okay. I thought it was at your end, or
Yeah, it was on my end. It was on my end.
okay.
Yes,
That's
yes. Oh my
that's
goodness.
also
So
that's Stoic practices can help us with this, right?
yes, yes. It's not usual that my internet has an issue like that. I have pretty good internet, but sometimes you never know. Maybe it was a sunspot or something, or maybe
Yeah.
fate decided to intervene and say, "Okay, segue to something else. You've talked enough on that. Let's go to back to the four virtues." So um, no, I again, life throws things at you, and you got to keep moving forward. I think stoicism is a very, very strong key to that. It goes back to what Bryce said, Marcus Aurelius's quote: "The obstacle is the way." Um, when you go through these obstacles, you gain knowledge, and with that, hopefully, acquire some wisdom, and you're able to apply that. And you can utilize that knowledge to find a better path to make things better for yourself. Again, this goes back to the serving self versus self-serving that I talk about, because you have to put yourself in that mental that positive state of mental health to be able to bring that positive state of mental health to others. So, and that's something that I work on a daily basis, because I try to be the positive one. I try to bring enlightenment to people. I try to bring knowledge to people. I try to help educate, and in the process, I'm always wanting to be educated. I want people to bring me knowledge, because I mean, how else do you um, fine tune that path that you're on, you know.
And I think that that's exactly where it takes courage. And as Bryce was mentioned in his comment there about vulnerability, I think that that is also where if you allow yourself to be vulnerable to yourself, you can find that path. If you are, because then you can start to listen. And as you mentioned at the beginning, sometimes, as Zeno mentioned, we have two ears and one mouth. We should listen more and speak less. But that also means to ourselves. So, and the problem lies there is that it takes courage to listen to ourselves and to ask ourselves those questions, to say, hey, what is my path? What am I doing, that doesn't suit me? And that's why the Stoics say to live in accordance with nature, which means your own nature. And that's where the start lies with a philosophy as Stoicism and, any kind of philosophy or thought pattern where you're asked to find out who you are. So when we're talking about something like courage, it is that drive to act, right? That drive to make sure that you are uh, living up to yourself, not maybe your highest potential, but at least to your doing justice to yourself. I think that that's where kind of the courage is. Okay, got to take this step, got to take this hurdle. And the quote that Bryce used was, the obstacle is the way, and everybody has their own obstacles. And sometimes that kind of feels a lonely kind of journey to go through your own obstacles. But as you mentioned, with the numbers you showed at the beginning and friends, all those around you, those are your support channel. They can help you, they can guide you, they can kind of cheer you on. But you have to do it at the end of the day yourself. And I think that that's where when Seneca said, even to live is an act of courage. That's where that comes from. Because at the end of the day, and then, but if you take that courage and you see, I can ask those questions, and the more you start to ask them, the more you get used to them, the more, it becomes easier to ask them. And the more you know yourself, you can see some revelations, you can see some epiphanies. You say, this is who I am. I might have been portraying someone else that I wasn't, and now I am really trying to, be who I am, and I can use words like no, or I can use, I can show who I am. I can be vulnerable. Why? Because if people think that I'm, as we said, weak or whatever, that doesn't matter to me because they don't know me. And if they say that, then they have no inclination of knowing me. So I think that that's where that kind of courage comes from.
Right. And you mentioned people not knowing you. Everyone likes to think that they know themselves and they know other people. And the reality is we don't. I don't know you. I only know of you from what you show me, and you only know of me what I show you. We ourselves are always learning about ourselves and either what our weaknesses are, what our strengths are, and it's how we utilize them that can either make us stronger or weaker. I know that I have an addictive personality. I know that when it comes to things of an addictive nature, I have to stay away from those things. And it's really, really hard for me to get away from those things once I'm on them. I mean, you see me vape on here. I smoked since I was a child, and I've been vaping now for probably almost 2 years, and I feel so much better, so much healthier. And granted, vaping's not healthy for me, but I got away from one. I traded demons. I traded one demon for another demon, and this demon isn't as bad as the previous demon. Plus, the damage that it did to my clothes and my home, cigarette smoke and the tar that's in it, and the yellowing of the walls and all that other stuff that goes with it. Your clothes always have this nasty smell to it, and that creates a positiveness. Now, my next step is to eventually stop vaping, eventually get rid of caffeine in my diet, eventually get rid of sugar in my diet. And I'm working on all these things. And, a lot of times people might be, well, Paul, you got so many other things that psychologically that you need to work on and deal with. Why are you taking on all these other things? Because I can, because I want to. Those are the things that are going to make me better in the long run. Those are the things that are going to allow me to feel better and be better. So yes, I can take them on because as I have all these little accomplishments along the way, I do feel better. Um, it's like um, I brought up that I had my accident in 2011. Just this year, I was able to finally do a push up again. Finally. And now I can do 10 push ups. I mean, you want to talk about something that, you know, brings up my confidence for going forward. You know, my doctor in 2014 told me I'd be in a chair within 5 years. I'm still walking. That's 9 years ago. I'm still walking, and I'm going to continue to walk. I'm going to keep doing it because I'm doing the things that are going to allow me to continue to do that. And mentally, that's where a lot of power comes in. The mind is so powerful, and it it takes courage to accept the fact that the mind is that powerful. And if you utilize your mind, you can do a lot of things. And if you decide to keep going forward and to keep trying, trust me, you can accomplish a lot.
Yeah, and that's a great story. I always like hearing your stories, and especially, they're uplifting, right? They're showing people, hey, it's not necessarily about the big goals. It's about those small increments, and keep doing the things that are the best for you to keep living, right? And slowly start improving. But I think that first step of courage comes at acknowledging what is the wrong path, right? It's that first step of saying, hey, I've got to make this decision to say this is the right path I'm on. I've got to improve on this. And then suddenly all those things that you've listed, they seem a lot for the people outside, but for you it has a single purpose: to live a better life. And then they're not as big for you. They're just incremental steps, and you have to show some kindness and compassion to yourself, because there might be days where you slip up and it might, fall back a little bit, but that's it. That's part of the progress. Those are your obstacles to take, and that's what you got to keep doing. But that's, I think, why courage is one of those four virtues, because it is, again, I like that first principle thinking. It's that first part where you go back to. It's that first push, that drive to say, hey, I've got to do this. I've got to. When you know that there's something in your behavior that's not quite uh, positive for yourself, not pushing yourself in a beneficial direction, you can say, this isn't the right way. Got to wake up. I've got to do this. I've got to slowly start doing it. And that's the bigger. Then you have the long term results if you start doing it gradually in your way. Because people could say, hey, Paul, you should quit smoking. And you say, okay, I'm going to quit now. And then maybe, a few weeks later, a year later, you can start again. But if you do it your way, you say, this is how I progress towards getting it out of my life. And you can see that path ahead of you, and you know that this is how I can do it. Yeah, great. But it takes, again, and I think that that's why the Stoics, and well, this goes back to like Aristotle, Socrates, Plato, with the four virtues. They were onto something, right? That's why this knowledge from over 2,000 years ago still rings true. And that's why you can say, what is better than courage? What do we need more than courage? No, that's it, right? Courage, justice, wisdom, and temperance. Those are the four virtues. And they knew why, because those are the four pivotal points that the cardinal virtues we see in, Christianity and many different philosophies, they come back. And
Yes.
courage is one of those, because it is difficult. Life is difficult for everyone. You might say, oh, this person is privileged, but you don't know what kind of problems they're dealing with. With other people, it might be a little bit more obvious, but maybe that's not even what they're dealing with. So it is that first step to really say, hey, I'm going to live a better life. I'm going to do it first for myself, and then, in the same time, for the people around me to benefit. And again, with your example and other people's examples, you never know what someone needs to see.
Exactly, exactly. And I don't want to misinform people here and all that, because it sounds like I've done a lot of, you know, I've had a lot of strength and accomplished a lot. Um, it doesn't come with its downfalls, because there are those days that I didn't get out of bed. There are those days that all I could do is just sit there and cry. There are those days that, again, I didn't eat. I wouldn't eat because Again, it's a the spiral that I was in, and so it hasn't been an easy battle going forward, but as I take these steps and I have successes along the way, it continues to get easier, and it allows me to take on more things that I want to change. And as I see the accomplishments along the way, certain things become easier as I take on other challenges and add to it. And it's like, well, why not finish the one? I may never finish one, you know. It might be something that I have to deal with for the rest of my life, like this. Maybe I never give this up. So if I were to just focus on this, what a waste of time to not take on other things if I can, and I do. So I pick and choose what I want to battle for the day, and that's what I deal with. And once I do that, I pick something else. It's like I didn't do dishes yesterday. I could not bring myself to do dishes yesterday. I didn't have a show yesterday, and I wanted a day for me. And I basically wasted yesterday away. But I in wasting it away, it was well worth it, because today I woke up so much more well refreshed and felt better about the day when I got up. So I needed that one day to just not do anything. And the reality is I didn't do nothing. I did for self. I did for self. Self needed that break. I gave self that break.
Yeah, and I think when you say, wasting it away, when you do it consciously, when you say I need to have this day for myself, and the Stoics say when you do it mindfully and you live it, you say I'm not going to do anything, and that's okay, that's fine. That is not wasting. That's exactly what you said. That's what your mind, your body is telling you. Hey, Paul, I need this day for myself. Let's take it easy. Let's take a break. And I know those days as well where you just say, okay, that's it. And I've had a big, socially interactive weekend, which was great, with friends and family. But then at one point, I just say, I need some space for myself. I need some time for myself, and that's also fine. And that's, I think, another part of where when talking about courage again. I think that's another part of it where you can tell yourself it's fine. It is okay. It is okay. But if I do this, I'm going to do it with all that I have. I'm going to do everything with everything that I have, right? And it sounds it sounds strange nowadays because it feels like we always have to do our things, and especially when you hear like, oh, you got to have these routines, these habits. You've got to wake up at this hour. You got to do this. Fine if that works for you, but for me it doesn't, right? And that's the kind of pressure that we have, that we are being pushed into a kind of a funnel of society where it says live this way. And then it again, that takes that courage to step out of that path and say, no, this is your road, but this is mine. And I think that's why it is important to as you said, I've got to tackle all these things at the same time, but in the moment. And again, that's why I liked your title of the show, in the moment. That's
Yeah.
it. When you're dealing with, for example, with food, you're in that moment and you say, okay, I've had enough food for now, and that's it. And then the next moment you feel like you have some other urge. Okay, now I deal with this. So you can deal with things at the same time. You might not make those leaps as other people might want to think, but is that really sustainable? So you're doing it your way, and I think that is a great way. And the Stoics, they are very in the moment, and they deal with the situation that is at hand to apply the four virtues, to live well, and to say this is the action that is required for me right now.
Yes, yes. I have a comment here on Twitter Spaces, well, Twitter Live. Morning, Paul, Benny, and Peaceful Warrior. Have a blessed day, Rob. Thank you, thank you. You too, Rob. You have a blessed day also. Thank you. I appreciate that. Um, and for those that don't know, if you're on the Twitter Live, you can put something in the chat. There is a chat. I can see it. If you do a comment on there, I may not see it. There's a chat line on it. If you're on your phone, you can always say something on there. and I'll read them if I can. So, anyways, thank you again, Rob. I appreciate that. Um, yeah, when I did that yesterday, I did it well. I must say, I relaxed. I got down. I played with the pup. I took her out on an extra walk, so I got 3 walks in yesterday, which felt really good, really leisurely. Took my time. Let pup sniff a few extra things that I usually are. I'm trying to tug her along, saying, come on, let's go. We got to do this walk. And instead, I just like kind of let her, enjoy her moment. And I would just stand there and look at the sky and enjoy the beauty of things, So I really took it in yesterday. I needed it, So, and I encourage other people to do that, when you get that chance and you can make the time to do it, just take in what's around you, Nature is just such a beautiful thing, take it in.
It is, and it passes us by so quickly when we're doing stuff. And I'm mirroring my parents, and my father has a little vineyard, and I've been seeing, from my window, I can see it, and I've been seeing it go from without leaves to slowly going green, and now it's starting to get brown again. We just picked the last grapes yesterday, the day before Saturday, and we just pressed the last ones yesterday, and it's a big moment for my father. It's really great to be here. So, just to kind of and add to that kind of the talk we have about courage, and in the moment it's also important to be grateful, right, for those moments that you have and things that you can experience, and say, hey, you know what, I'm here, look at around me, and the Stoics say that, hey, I've made it to another a day. This is some extra time that I've been given, and I've got to make the best of it. And sometimes the best of it is uh, just to do nothing, like to do nothing, because it is still doing something for yourself, to give yourself that break. But
Yes.
yeah, no, that's good. And also, like when we talk about courage, I also kind of wanted to see how that links with the rest of the virtues, right? Because that's a
Yeah.
important. We've been talking about wisdom, and we've been talking about temperance the other day, and it is often that some people try to make one virtue be more important. I think Ryan Holiday has a book on courage as well. I can't remember the title exactly from top, but they're all linked together, right? And if we look at what courage means for those four, is that courage means that it's that drive to act. We have to have wisdom, justice. We have to be just, and we have to be tempered. But we can only do that if we have courage, and that's why those four, they work so well together, because we need them. We can't be just if we're not courageous. And courageous doesn't mean like the warrior type. That's something that some people get kind of confused with, especially in some areas. If you go online, they say, oh, you've got to be the Spartan, the warrior, you've got to be courageous. But courage also means just for yourself, as we said earlier, to kind of reach out, right, if you're dealing with something,
Yes.
and to deal with your own problems, to deal with the things that you struggle with. That takes courage. And
Yes.
that's why it's all just very linked together, and courage is that acting driver behind all of the others, that says, you know what, I might be fearful of this, or I might like things like this coming online, speaking in public. It's not easy. And in a year and a half ago, I don't know if I would have. Now I feel kind of comfortable. It's also good to have a conversation with you, Paul, so that makes it easier. But it's we just have it's nice, but it takes that courage, that first step, and once you get over it, it gets easier and it gets easier. So I think that's really important to kind of highlight the situation, the impact, the role that courage plays within the virtues.
Yes. Yes. A lot of times people think justice means standing up for what's right. It's not always about just standing up for what's right. If you see somebody, being harmed or whatever, sometimes you are confronted with a situation where you might be tempted to do something wrong. And it takes the courage because, hey, if I step on this person's toes, I can get the promotion and I can make, 20% more per year. Well, it takes courage to stand up and say, no, I'm not going to do that. It takes courage because temptation can take you away from what's just. And it takes courage to stand up to that. Wisdom, you can be given knowledge, and if you're not applying that knowledge to, learn from it, and sometimes you get some very hard lessons in life, and you want to just throw it to the side, not pay attention to it. The courage comes in and looking at it and self-reflection and making sure that you learn something from this error or this mistake or whatever it is that was before you. And then, of course, temperance and all that, again, greed, money, food, whatever the case is, addiction, it takes courage to say, no, I'm not going to do this, or no, I'm not going to, put myself in that position. So, as you were saying at the beginning of it, like, which one is the most important? For whatever moment you're in and whichever one you are applying, it is the most important one at that time. And it feeds off all the others.
Yeah, definitely. And that's why sometimes you can say that courage is the underlying one that kind of you need to have in all the moments when you have to be wise, when you have to be just, and when you have to be tempered. For example, one thing with wisdom and knowledge, as you were saying, sometimes it takes courage to question people's information, to question the things that you hear, even from those that you see in high regard, and that's the just thing for yourself. So they're all kind of interlocked, right? They where you have to be just to yourself to say, hey, this is that right? Is this information correct? And now with all the information overload we get, we need to be able to ask ourselves those questions and see, hey, is this really the right thing? And it is difficult to stand up, and it is difficult to ask people questions and to kind of tell them you might be wrong, right? Because as you said, it's not, it's not something that people really want to hear. But yeah, that's why it is in that moment, where you need to apply that virtue that is necessary. And everybody has their own virtue that is something that they struggle with the most, right? We've talked about this before. Like for me, it's more temperance, but it's also with courage to really stand up for who I am. To say, for example, we're like, no, that's something that I struggled with. I'm a people pleaser. I want people to be, happy, to have a good time. So a lot of the times when people ask me, do you want to come over and, do this or do that? It's like, yeah, let's do it. And then I start thinking, like, is that really something? So for me, that's kind of the question that the answer that I find difficult to give is that question of that answer of no. So for me, that's something that I know I'm working on, and it takes courage to say it, to say, hey, you know what, this is not happening for me. And why? Yeah, I don't feel it. Because people need an explanation. So a lot of the times you have your own moments where you feel that you are struggling with the courage, that you need to deal with it in the right way. And that knowledge, that can help you to identify those moments when you need to apply that certain virtue. With food or drinks can be temperance, right? With these kind of standing up for who you are and making sure that you have your boundaries set. That's where the courage comes from. And if you remember that, if you know that, then you can go into that moment, you can recognize it as like, now I've got to tap into my courage. Now this is the moment where I've got to pick for me and say, this is my boundary. I respect you. This is nothing personal. This is just for me to kind of protect me. And that's when you need that courage. And that's why I think it's important to have those moments to really look at when it happens, and then you can identify them faster when you're in that moment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. I think this has been a great show. We have covered the 4 virtues pretty well over the last 3 episodes. Next week, what would you like to talk about? Do you have anything that you like? You're just wanting to get out there in relation to Stoicism?
I think from what I've been thinking about is something that I kind of my way into Stoicism, and it's talking about how to deal with people, like how to deal with people in the public life, in at work, just in general, and how to deal with them in a respectful way, and maybe not get as frustrated or angry with people. For example, in ways of like when you drive, when you go to the supermarket, but also with coworkers. So I think there's a lot of really important, really good tools from Stoicism that can help you deal with people, because we are a society. We do live with other people around us, to kind of help us deal with them better. And you gave, I think it was last week, where you gave a good example when you are, you came across someone else. I can't remember the exact example of the situation, but you just talked to her, and things went fine, right? So there's a way to deal with people, and that's kind of one of those things where stoicism for me personally had a big impact, but I think it can help people as well, and kind of move it from a struggle to a training ground. That's kind of how I see those interactions.
Okay, so basically, we're going to go. Who is it? Marcus Aurelius and all that. We have to tolerate people. We have to. We all live together, so we have to learn. We don't have to like each other. We have to tolerate each other.
I think he says you can instruct, if you can instruct them, endure them, or something like that.
Okay.
Top of my head, yeah.
Okay. So next week will be the endurance and toleration of other people. So I will phrase that better for the title, but that's what we will talk about next week. I want to thank people that came into the comments and everyone that joined us on the Twitter Live. I appreciate your support. Remember that I'm on Monday through Saturday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. I have to talk to Luke. I don't know if we're going to be doing Writers Retreat tomorrow or not. Luke has a lot of things going on. She's started up a bookstore and is working real hard to keep the cash flow going. So I'll find out if she's ready to come back tomorrow or not. Otherwise, Wednesday we have the flow with Shadow Fox. That's going to be a special show because Diana and Hermit, I believe they're all going to be up there with Shadow Fox. So we're probably going to have a nice live edition with about 3 or 4 people at Shadow Fox's house. So this will be kind of fun. Thursday, we have Who Wrote the Bill. We have our hosts, Nick Nunley and Jack Cunningham. And quite possibly I might have Reggie Townsend back on. The invite is out, so we'll see if he takes me up on it. I hope he does. I hope he does. He gives such a great perspective. On Friday, the Vellum, we're going to be doing another aspect on mental health and writing. Again, mental health. It's a huge thing for me right now. So I'm addressing mental health as much as possible. And it's also a huge thing for T. Paul Wolfrick. So we're kind of coinciding with this whole mental health thing. And then Saturday, we have Jeremy Baker with Democratic Philosophy. And I don't know what we're talking about on that show yet, but I'm sure it'll be good. Waiting for Jeremy to get back to me on which topic. And, of course, we're looking at the current events of what's going on during the week. So we'll see what goes on. We'll see what goes on. Anyways, in the meantime, remember, Benny, any closing words? Any final
No,
thoughts?
not really. No, I think it was a great conversation, and I think it's really important what you're doing on the mental health aspect. With the number of the suicide and crisis hotline that you showed at the beginning, I think that is really important. And top conversations like this on topics like courage, the virtues are really important. So no, great conversation again, Paul, and great shows you've got coming up as well as you just mentioned.
Thank you. And yes, and I will put the hotline back up here at the end. And remember, just because somebody may not seem like they're going through something, sometimes they might be hiding it really well, and you just may not know. So it always pays to remember to be kind and be happy and make good things come your way. Thank you.